in a dream, what is the necessity? Because that necessity is showing us where our energy is blocked. And when we go back into the dream and we address that necessity, then we unblock and we're able to move forward.
Hey, my friends, it's Kelly Reeves, and welcome to the Confidence Academy. Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Confidence Academy. I'm your host, Kelly Reeves, and I want to thank you for being here because you're here. That means you took the time out of your busy day to listen in. And it also tells me that you are willing to invest the time to learn about your personal growth, self-improvement, and of course, how to build your confidence in any part of your life. So I want to thank you for being here. And if someone shared this with you, that means they care enough about you to give you the tools that you need to learn about how your dreams can have a significant impact on your waking life. So we all dream, we all have these dreams of maybe our past and our childhood, or maybe we have terrifying and scary dreams, or maybe we always have that recurring dream of being naked in front of the classroom, or maybe we have these dreams that we have no idea what they're about. So I want you to stop for a second and think about a dream that you keep thinking about, or one that actually caused you to make a major decision or shift in your life. My guest today is going to walk you through exactly how to pay attention to those dreams and the steps you need to take to start having a relationship with your dreaming. Bonnie Buckner is one of the world's top dream experts. She's the founder and CEO of the International Institute for Dreaming and Imagery, where she teaches people how to use dreaming and imagery for personal growth, problem solving, and enhancing creativity. Bonnie has used dream work as the basis for her work as an executive and creative coach for over 20 years. In addition, she serves as an executive coach and senior fellow at George Washington University's Center for Excellence in Public Leadership and co-faculty director of their Leadership Coaching Certification Program. Bonnie is also the author of the book, The Secret Mind, where she breaks down how to use nighttime dreaming and your everyday life to solve challenges and transform your life. And one of the things I love about her is she just doesn't just teach theory. She gives you a practical formula you can use in your waking lives, at work, in your relationships, and in community. Bonnie Buckner, welcome to the Confidence Academy. I got to tell you, so I do have this practice where every morning I wake up and I dream pretty vividly. So I think, okay, what was that about? What did that mean? And I try to dissect these dreams and don't know what they mean. So I'm glad you're here. So tell us about how you got started in this work and kind of how dream interpretation works and all that, because I know everybody's going to be super curious about this.
Cool. Thank you for having me here. I just have one question for you. Do you write these vivid dreams down?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes, like, if it's really vivid, then I feel like it means something. And I journal every morning. That's a big part of my morning daily practice. And so sometimes if it's something that I think has meaning, then I'll write it down. But my problem is so I dream about a snake, and you go on, and what does snake mean? Oh, it means renewal. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of sounds cliche, but yeah, sometimes I do. Sometimes I just, it seems kind of innocuous, so I just let it go.
Okay, well, two things to that. One, if I do my job here today, I'm going to have you write them every day.
Okay.
And I'll explain why in just a second. And two, I'm super glad you brought up the dream dictionary, because they don't work.
Yeah.
For the exact reason that you said, cliche. Mm-hmm. So the thing about dreaming is dreaming answers the question of that inner knowing and how do I get there?
Right.
We've all had those moments where, and these are things that people tell me all the time, I knew XYZ was the right decision for me, or I knew that job was the job I had to take. And then the question is, how did they know? We just know. But then people come to me and they say, I don't know what to do right now. And when we don't know what to do with our job, our career, our life, the first thing that typically we humans do is start asking everybody outside of ourselves
What to
instead
do?
of checking in with our own self, right?
Yeah.
So, dreaming is something that is our own inner self talking to us as a dialogue. And the only reason it seems strange and bizarre is because it's images as opposed to words. But it is that pathway of looking inside instead of outside to know what we know and what we want to do with our life and where we want to go.
So I think about dreams, like I just said, I'll dream about a snake and I'm like, oh, what does that mean? Because recurring dreams, that's another thing. Like I'll dream about the same place over and over, but I've never been to that place that I know of.
Yeah. So back to the snake, because the snake's really coming up. And you know what's interesting? I taught a workshop on Sunday, and one of the dreams that we worked on had a snake. And what's interesting about the snake, in this particular dream, the dreamer, takes the snake and looks at it and talks about, in the dream, feeling how strong the snake is, and in a good way. And this is right where dream dictionaries fail us, because they're one size fits all.
Right.
But dreaming is intensely subjective. And so what that person was feeling with that person's snake in that dream can't be covered by any dream dictionary that's trying to squeeze everybody into the same shoebox.
Right.
We create our own inner images. And we create those inner images through all of the experiencing that we have. And, our inner images are interesting. From a psychological perspective, they're kind of a holistic packet of information that contains our perceptions, our perceived knowings and experiences, memories, ideas, things beyond, it takes a couple of different things and then synthesizes that to take us somewhere else. So a little bit of what we know about snakes over here, a little bit of memory of snakes over there, and then puts it in a package of a brilliant yellow snake that this person has never seen in waking life. But the color of it, the holding it, the looking it in the eye, the being able to grab and hang on to it, all of that, it's not just the image of the snake, it's the whole experience of that spoke to this person.
Right. And so my snake's dream, but it is because, I also co-founded a nonprofit animal rescue. And the recent snake dream, which was pretty vivid, was there was a snake and then there was a bunch of puppies and I needed to save the puppies. So I'm guessing that's somewhere in my subconscious of where I'm always trying to rescue animals of some sort and how that plays out.
Yeah. And in that moment, my sense, if I'm a secondary dreamer of this dream, that snake hasn't a single thing to do with renewal in that particular context.
Right.
It's more some of the other things that we associate with snakes. What kind of emotion do you associate with a snake?
Nothing really. I mean, I worry about rattlesnakes where I live.
I worry. Exactly. It's a little worry, and I've got to rescue the puppies.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense because I live out in the country and rattlesnakes are pretty prominent. And I guess because I had been like, okay, what do I do about, because I worry about my dog seeing a rattlesnake and going, oh, what's that thing? And
yeah,
and then that causes a lot of trouble. So you live in France and you said a dream took you to France. So tell me about that.
Yeah. It was a series of dreams, and, it wasn't at all on my radar. I wasn't expecting it. I had just graduated with my PhD and was growing my client base, and I was set, right, quote unquote. And I suddenly had a dream that my inner knowing kicked in as, oh, I have to go to France. And I even woke up opposite in the bed. My feet were at the headboard. My head was at the end. And I knew, okay, this is going to turn me all around. But this is, I mean, I've been teaching how to work with our dreams forever. So I have to heed this. And so I started kind of gearing up for it. To me, this was a massive challenge. And my dreams continued. And for over a year, I dreamed various versions of different great dreams about going to France, going to France, going to France. And so I did it. And I've been in France ever since. It's been a little over 11 years now.
Well, that means it was a good dream and not a nightmare.
It wasn't a nightmare, but in my
Right.
mind, I had had just a couple of experiences in France, and it would not have been my top one or even 50 countries to move to. And
Right.
so it was a huge surprise. And this is the other thing, there is a very practical element to dreaming. And this is so much about what I teach and really what I have put into the Secret Mind book is dreams show us what our waking time experience is, what we really know and understand about it, and how to get out of our blocks and how to move where we want to go. And there's that little mystery element of dreams because we're not finished. There's a lot more about ourselves we don't know. And if we open to that, we can have great adventures. And so that going to France thing was an aspect of me knowing me better than I thought I knew myself because it's been a great fit.
Mm-hmm. And that's, when I wake up and I think about dreams and I'm like, what does it mean? And what is, God, the universe or whatever trying to tell me that's in my subconscious, like, hey, tap into this to do that. And I'm always trying to, every day, when I wake up, that's what I try to figure out, like, what did I dream about last night? And is there any meaning? Is there like a message I need to move forward with? And I don't ever think I've had that feel like I woke up from a dream and go, oh my gosh, I got to do this. So how do certain people have such conviction from a dream that's communicated to them, and some it's a dream and then they go on with their life?
Well, it's true. What I just described is a doozy. And I think, I had opened myself to that because I had so many years of having certain dreams that I paid attention to. And so I reconciled. I made the effort when I woke up to maybe reconcile with a friend, or I made the effort to look at my work differently, or these, little messages. And over time, one of the things that I teach people, and I give a little exercise for this in the Secret Mind, is how to create for yourself the confidence as a scientist would in your dreaming. So it's not a matter of, do I trust this or not? It's like Newton, who dropped, however many apples, and every single one of them fell to the ground. And that proved gravity. So this is one reason why writing our dreams every day is useful, because we really have fuzzy memory.
Right.
And when we write every day, oh, I dreamed this, I dreamed that, and maybe look back on it at the end of the week, oh, here's a pattern, or, oh, I'm actually moving in a certain direction. And when we start interacting with that and being conscious and intentional about decisions we take, then we start a feedback that develops confidence in what that inner language is and how it's working for us to prepare to build up for bigger things. And that helps us to open. You asked me why certain people have these dreams and other people don't. And, some people are really open to being surprised and go somewhere in their lives. Other people aren't. Other people are already in that self-examining mode. And maybe, a dream's not going to need to come in to jolt them into doing something. So there's all kinds of different reasons why sometimes dreams come in with a big message, and sometimes it's the little message.
Yeah. And I think because we're, bombarded every day with information and social media and this and that, and our thought, like constantly thoughts and mind, is always going. And could you say that dreams are maybe those parts of our day that we missed, but that the subconscious still absorbed?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Right now, we're looking at each other. Neither one of us knows what the back of our head looks like.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Hopefully it's good.
Right.
We have to have a mirror to show us what our back looks like.
Right.
And in the same way, we're like always looking out in our day to day. And usually that looking out is problem solving. I've got to get here at this time today. I've got to pay this bill. I've got to check this off my to-do list. It's not until we close our eyes, lay back, and turn our eyes inward that we kind of check into that reflective space. So dreams do that for us because the whole time we're like problem solving and checking off our to-do list, we're experiencing a tremendous amount. It's not just that, yeah, my boss came in and yelled at me. Yeah, I've got this timeline. It's that I have a response to that also. I have feelings about that. And our dreams show us all of that so we get the full picture.
Yeah. And I think about that, like, especially with trauma, like anybody who's experienced trauma, and if they have the constant dream about that, then that's them, I guess, not processing trauma because it gets buried in your nervous system. And I love like the whole combination of like neuroscience and what you do with neurobiology and how everything that happens in our waking lives can it does manifest in our dreams, but just in really wacky pictures. Because I'll have a dream and I'm like, what was even going on there?
But think about it. You talked about social media earlier. How powerful it is when you get a meme or you just, one, political cartoon or something like this with just very few images and either a couple of words or none at all. And suddenly we get a lot of information out of that. We have a whole lot of backstory. It takes our thinking somewhere else. Pictures really are worth 1,000 words. They show us so much more. And then when we try and explain that to people, it gets reduced because words are reductive. They're one at a time. But we have a whole huge understanding of something that then we have to try and explain to someone. And our dreams just stay in that picture place of whole big understandings.
Right. So how did you get started? So what was it's like, I'm going to study this and make this my career.
Yeah. So I was 3 years old and
Wow.
I had had a series of nightmares and it was really bothering me. And I was thinking, what can I do? Can I just not sleep? That's the first thing a little kid thinks. I'm just not going to sleep anymore.
Terrible.
And I went through these, sort of thinkings about this. And then I realized it just kind of hit me. Okay, this is what I'm here to do. I'm going to figure out how to master my nightmares and help other people do that for them. Now, obviously, I didn't start doing that at 3, but I kind of knew that deep inside myself. And then as I was growing, my family, and especially my father and my grandmother, were big dreamers and very supportive of me saying things like, I'm going to teach people dreaming. And they were like, great. And that's really important because most of us have had our intuition squashed at some point in our life. Every human being is intuitive, and every human being is a big dreamer. But at a certain age, we're told to put those things away, time to grow up now. And we then make a disconnect. And so as an adult, we have to come back to, how do I really trust myself and what I know? Reason number 2 for you to write your dreams down every night, because it builds that confidence. So then I just continued to kind of walk with that idea as I went through different, careers in my life, looking for a dream teacher and looking for what suits me as a lineage or tradition of dreaming to teach.
Wow. So, and I always hear like, oh, what's my purpose? And you learned it at 3 years old. So, but it's true. Like the Steve Jobs quote about dreamers, like those are the ones that you really got to watch out for because they're the ones that are going to make a huge difference because they're not looking at this myopic, like, oh, you got to go to college and have this career and that's all you're going to do. Like you're not allowed to dream. You got to be logical. You got to be, like you said, you got to grow up. So So how do you, so because there's like the dreams that you dream every night, but then there's the dreams that are like your aspirations. So how do they, is there a merger of them? Can they come together with, going back to the snake just for conversation's sake, I don't aspire to have anything to do with snakes, but how do those two kind of come together? So you say I aspire to be like a globally known podcaster. But that's like a waking dream as opposed to a sleeping dream.
Yeah. So to be the thing we aspire to be, we are challenged to get over blocks in order to make that happen. So I'll illustrate that with a story. I was at an event and a woman came up to me and said, "You're the American who works with dreams." And I said, "Yes." This happens to me so frequently. It happened to me last weekend, even. It's like being the doctor in the room,
Right.
Doc, I've just got this one symptom. And I people tell me their dreams all the time. And this woman said, "I'm where I am today because of a dream." And I said, "So tell me the dream." She dreams that a horse and carriage is coming down the path towards her. She's standing next to the River Seine in Paris, and a horse and carriage is coming down the path towards her. And then she looks, and there's a red motorboat zipping away from her. And she wakes up, and she tells me, "I knew I couldn't wait any longer to do what I've always wanted to do." And I said, "Which is?" And she said, "Something in both writing and the arts." And so she quit her job that day, not knowing what else she was going to do or how to put that together. And within 3 months, she was an art critic for a major, magazine and writing about the arts. So the real question is, she said, "I knew I always wanted to do it.
Right.
And I couldn't wait any longer."
Right.
So most of us know the things that interest us. Mm-hmm. We get ourselves hung up with needing to know or thinking we need to know, because we don't, what that has to look like.
Right.
Right? And so we get stuck, and then all of these self-doubts come in. "Oh, but I can't do that. I'm not confident enough to do that," or whatever, million different doubts we creep in. This is where dreams like the snake dream then come in, because any block that we have is going to show up in our dreams. Any emotional entanglement like fear is going to show up in our dreams. And the one thing that I think really distinguishes the lineage of dreaming that I teach from others is how interactive it is. So we look at, and in The Secret Mind, I teach people how to do it. In a dream, what is the necessity? Because that necessity is showing us where our energy is blocked. And when we go back into the dream and we address that necessity, then we unblock and we're able to move forward. Sometimes all the way to the aspiration. Maybe we need to clear a couple of blocks before we get there, but it's the path of getting us there. Right. So there's the aspiration and then the things that hold us back.
And the things that hold us back are what we see in the dreams.
And also our potentials. Yeah. So you've talked about a few different kinds of dreams. There's that snake dream. There's dreams you've called that are more vivid than others, that you feel like are more important than others. So in this lineage, one of the things we talk about is there's 7 kinds of dreams. And those 7 kinds of dreams fall into categories of resolved or unresolved. And so we have different kinds of dreams that meet us at different moments in our waking time. There are moments when we need to exercise a latent potential. We've been sitting on something, our courage, or something we know how to do that we haven't brought forward. Maybe it's because of a block and we need to clear a block. There are other times when we need to hear that big message. We need to replug back in to our aspirations. So there's different kinds of dreams, and how we interact with them depends on what kind of dream it is.
Interesting. What about, because people say when someone you love that is deceased, or even a pet, you dream about them, some people say that's a visitation, which is a very hopeful thing. Like my mom recently passed away, and when I dream about her, I get so excited because it's like I get to see her again. But is that really a visitation, or is that just something that from the loss and the grief and just she's my mom for 53 years? Like, does it showing up just from my subconscious, or is this really kind of a visitation from my mother telling me she's okay?
What did it feel like to you?
Well, I've had a few and they felt different. One was like she was fine, and I was like, okay, she's great. I don't have to worry about where she is now or what she's doing. She's okay. But a couple were a little strange just because her passing was very sudden and unexpected, and she is in how it happened. And I think there's parts of probably where I am where I'm still not 100% in acceptance of it, but I know she's okay. So it's kind of weird. So it's kind of like they kind of come together of she's okay, but I don't like it. Right. So,
Yeah. So I kind of knew we were going to talk about this today.
yeah.
Yeah, because I taught a workshop yesterday.
Like, did you dream about it?
No, I taught a workshop yesterday. I've been teaching a lot of workshops these days. And yesterday, for some reason, a lot of the participants really wanted to talk to me about visitation dreams.
Interesting.
And it just kind of hit me in my intuition. I think on the podcast tomorrow, we're going to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really important. And I work with a lot of people who are, from your visual impression, very buttoned down CEO, C-level people that seem to be people you might be surprised, that they're dreamers or something like this. We're all dreamers. I cannot underscore that enough.
Yeah.
And so many of them, when we start working together, they kind of lean in, even though it's Zoom and we're the only two people there.
Yeah.
And they say to me, I think my mother or my father visited me. Now, I have also had these experiences with loved ones, with pets, both that you mentioned. And I do believe that there are visitation experiences. I don't count those as part of the 7 kinds of dreams. I count them as an experience.
Right.
And they're very real. And if someone says to me, it just felt different, there was a different quality to it, it wasn't a normal kind of dream, I really believe it was a visitation. Me too. It's a visitation dream. But then there are other kinds of dreams where we dream about people we know, even people who have passed, which is really speaking to us about a thing that we are trying to get our heads around, a block that we're trying to work around that's not necessarily a visitation dream.
Right.
So my father has visited me in dreams, and they have a total different quality. It's like time stops. In my case, I always acknowledge it, and I acknowledge it by saying, Dad, you're dead. Why are we here? Why are we talking about this?
Yeah.
We clear that, and then he tells me what he needs to tell me. As opposed to, I had a dream last night, and my dad was in it.
Right.
And in that dream, it was just, me sort of having a reflection of something in me that I needed to either look at as like, oh, that's the courageous part of me, or reconcile with.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what about dreams? Because like I feel things often in my dreams. Like I'll either feel fear, like or I'll feel like if somebody's hugging me sometimes, like I'll feel like I'm actually being hugged, and I'll wake up and go, wow, I had a dream that I was being held. Maybe that's a protective or something, but like I can physically feel it in my dream as if that person were in the bed with me, holding me. So I guess that's one of those things I should write down, because it's like, who was it and what was I experiencing? And maybe I needed to feel safe and they made me feel safe, or maybe I was fearful and I was projecting whatever fear, and the fear can come out like, oh, I'm afraid I'm not going to get this client. But the dream turns out to be somebody's trying to break into my house. kind of thing.
Yeah. And so let's start with the feelings that you're talking about and the emotions. What dreams really do is they put form to these very abstract things, like a belief system. That's abstract. A desire. The example I gave of the dream of the woman who wanted to work in writing and the arts. That's a desire. If I say to somebody, what do you really want to do more than anything? They can maybe articulate that. Maybe they can't even articulate it, but it's a feeling. It's a strong feeling. And typically we know when we're not there more than we know when we're there, because we can say things like, this doesn't feel like me, or I took this job, but it doesn't feel right, you know? So we know these things, but it's abstract. And so what dreams do is they give us an image. So we see the image. It gives us some kind of form to that abstraction. And by doing that, we can literally like see it and wrap our hands and head around it. And at the same time, we're going to have an emotional response to it. And you can think about that just like you were talking earlier about being inundated by the news and social media and all of that. We all know very well that we can click on an image and feel, whoa, and we even like pull back maybe a little from the phone or whatever we're looking at. Or we kind of pull in like, oh, that looks sweet. And we do these things without really thinking about them. But images move us physically. Emotions move us physically. Belief systems move us physically. And we hold them in our posture. So dreams help us to really just see that so we can then start to interact with it and shift it.
Is there a way to control the dream, like in the dream, because I guess you'd have to have some level of consciousness. So there's like the, gamma, beta, theta waves of your brain and how it sinks down as you start to get more and more unconscious into sleep. But is there a way to, like, because sometimes when I'm having a dream, I'm aware enough to say, I'm going to change the direction of this dream. But I'm not. Yeah.
That's great, really.
But I'm not like awake, but I'm aware enough to go, okay, I want this to happen instead. So I almost become like a director of my own dream.
Yeah, great. And so do you do it? Do you remember ever doing it?
I have a few times where I'm like, no, I don't want that to happen. I want to go over here or whatever. So I do remember having dreams where I did kind of take back control of the situation somehow. But then I was completely asleep. So it's kind of strange how the levels of the mind works in conscious versus unconscious.
Well, I mean, I personally don't ever use the word unconscious unless someone is in a coma or dead.
Right.
We have subconscious.
Right.
But we can become aware to our subconscious or aware of our subconscious. It's really, really great when we're in a dream and we recognize we're dreaming and we take a conscious choice in our dream. Because what that does is it marries our conscious thinking with our dreaming self, and it gives a whole new level of agency.
Right.
Once I know I can do that, then I know I can do lots of changes in my waking time as well.
Right.
So it's really important to get there at some point, but it's equally important, and this is something I teach people all the time, to be aware of our dreaming in the daytime. And what I mean by that is we are dreaming all the time. Whatever we're living in the day, we're going to get it back a little bit differently in our dreams at night so we can understand it. But the reverse is also true. If I'm dreaming about an aspiration, that's what I'm living in daytime, but I may not be giving myself the time to think about that.
Right.
So when we start to become conscious to both our dreaming, but also our waking time, these things that are part of our experience that we throw to the side or put on the back burner, and we start to really wake up to them, then we turbocharge our ability to make our own path.
Right. Yeah. And I think, and I know you don't use the word unconscious, but I think sometimes we unconsciously go about our days. And, you wake up and you get on the computer, get on the phone, and it's just, you're doing what you're doing, but you don't stop to see the bigger picture around you. And yeah, I mean, if we all stopped and did that, then it could be like, okay, my life isn't just wake up, go to work, come home, and just go about my life on a, quote unquote, unconsciously, because you're not aware of all that's around you and all the possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. And, one of the things that happens with people who do the streaming work is they start to come back. And this happened also this weekend at something I taught. This guy who's been coming to different ones of my teachings, he said, this thing has started to happen where little things like going out to the lake and watching ducks with my son becomes the big thing. And he said, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like it becomes a full bodied experience. The grass is greener than I've ever normally seen it. The lake is more blue. The ducks are more interesting. And he said, I'm finding that life in general, he goes, I haven't changed careers, nothing's changed, but life in general is just so much more vibrant. And that happens when we really start to develop that sense of presence as well.
Yeah. And I think that's what, the power of now, what Eckhart Tolle talks about all the time is when you're present and you really feel every single part of every single moment. But, the brain is, it's like, I'm fascinated with how the brain works in neuroscience. It's become kind of a newer study for me because it dictates so much of our behaviors and our responses and in our lives and how we live it. And so, and I have a women's self-defense company. So how do you protect yourself? How do you have that mindset and confidence to defend yourself against someone? And not just defend yourself against someone like a physical attacker, but say somebody says something nasty to you on social media. Like, how do you set boundaries? How do you do all that? And it's all about how the brain works and how your subconscious works, because once you start doing the deeper work on yourself, and I started realizing patterns from my childhood between my parents and whatever. But I do see some of that manifest in dreams too, because I go back to the childhood home all the time. That's that's a big thing that's present in my dreams, is the home I grew up in. So, and I always wonder, like, okay, where did that come from? And what is that trying to tell me now? Like that old house. And, so. But yeah, it starts to manifest in things I never realized before. I start seeing more clearly just because I'm more open to it. But it takes some working on it to get your mind past the day to day and being able to see what's really possible.
It does. And one of the things that dreams help us to do with respect to that is to get us to see beyond the everyday. So one of the reasons you call it unconscious, my nephew and I call it zombie, of just going through your day, not thinking, is just like, the same old thing every single day, which if someone were to describe it, and many of my clients do, it's like lifeless. It's dull, it's gray, it's, whatever. I'm going through a routine. And part of doing that means we don't let in new information.
Right.
And dreams are always going to surprise us. They're strange. They physically move us, like you said, or we wake up with an emotion. These are great things. It's like shaking us awake and saying, wake up to your life, wake up to things that are in front of your face often. Like life's answers lay hidden in plain sight because we're just in that routine, and it's like living with blinders on.
Right. What is kind of the most common dream you hear about?
I was telling my publisher this. If I had $1 for every unflushed toilet dream, I'd be rich. And she was like, really? I've never had one of those dreams. And I said, you're rare. So many people, anything to do with, Either it's a super dirty bathroom or it's super dirty and the toilet is up to the rim and it's about to overflow.
Right. So what does that mean?
Well, think about it. How does it feel like to see this like stuck toilet? And then what does it feel like to flush it?
Right. Huh. I've never had that dream. I was thinking it was going to be
Good for you.
Yeah. I was thinking it was going to be the naked in school.
That happens. That also happens. Yeah.
I've had those, but I interpret that as feeling like a feeling of vulnerability or insecurity.
Or anxiousness. Yeah. All those kinds of emotional things that fall into that bucket of scrutiny.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of the one I've had. Not so much. Like I've had certain recurring dreams. Like I said, most of my recurring dreams are in places. Some places I recognize, like my childhood home. Some I'm like, why do I keep going to that other house? And so this may be getting a little weird, but past life experiences. So, and maybe even epigenetics from your grandparents, your great grandparents. Do you think those come into play? And I guess it depends upon one's beliefs about that. But if someone does believe in like a past life and this is their current one, do you think dreams can pull in stuff from that past life?
They can, but at the same time, we can have, houses are very, very common in dreams. There's the childhood home that you mentioned, and our childhood home is the place where everything happens, right? Where all those belief systems get laid down, all those patterns, and the times that we have our first happy memories, our first discoveries, even little things like the first time, I remember vividly the first time I ate homemade ice cream. That happens in somebody's home too, right? In that case, it was my grandmother's home that I spent time in as a kid. So childhood home or homes have a lot of information to tell us in a dream. But then there's frequently a home I haven't been to before, or a, brand new, super sleek, super clean, modern house. Well, let's just think about what a super slick, super clean, modern sense of being might be, you know? Housing us is very much about, how I'm feeling at the moment frequently. It's something we know and we live, and so it shows up in dreams in that way as a sort of, giving us, reflecting back to us, what's going on under our own personal roof.
Right. So tell me about the book. So The Secret Mind, it comes out next month in June.
Secret Mind comes out June 24th. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about it. Tell us.
So in this, The Secret Mind is something that I really wrote for people who are ready to start working with their dreams. I was talking with a friend of mine recently, and she was like, I am so glad. She was watching one of the videos I did on YouTube, and she was like, I am so glad you're going to teach us in chapter 1 how to remember our dreams. She goes, because for years, I know this has been your career, but I have the hardest time remembering my dreams. And I said, well, now you're going to learn.
Right.
So chapter 1, going to learn how to remember your dreams. But for those people who are already dreamers, there's still surprises in chapter 1 of what gets put into a dream that you write down, what's considered a dream and why. So we start there, and then I go through chapter by chapter with exercises at the end of each chapter, how to then go into understanding the images in dreams and how we make those images, of knowing the different kinds of dreams that I referred to earlier, the different kinds of dreams. I have a chapter on intuition and premonitory dreams, and then how to use dreaming to manifest a life change or a shift in your life path. And then I end the book with a reflection really on what it means when each one of us begins to embody our own great dream of self, with this idea that in addition to that, all of us as humanity have a great dream for humanity, a harmonious dream. And if we're withholding on our own great dream of self, then there's something lacking in the great dream of humanity. So the more we bring ourself into our own fruition, the more everybody changes. It makes big shifts.
Yeah, I love that. Well, yeah. So it's just pay attention to your dreams because, like I said, I always do. I wake up and I like before I get out of bed, I ask myself, what did I dream about last night? And some are pretty clear, like I said, some are just kind of like a hodgepodge of images. But do you think it's also determines because sometimes, like, I can feel like I go to sleep and I sleep really well. And sometimes I feel like I go to sleep, but I didn't really sleep that well. I wasn't completely awake. So does the quality or type of dream, let's say matter, but is there a difference between the quality of dream versus the quality of sleep you're getting?
Oh, definitely. Because I know you're really into the brain and people are these days, and that's great. I also make a lot of neurobiological references in the book, but the reason I really stress the neurobiological is because really dreams come from our bodies. Our brain executes the commands of the body. We think it's the other way around in modern society, but it's not.
Right.
Dreams come from our bodies, what we're perceiving, what we're sensing. Everything from the external world comes into us through the 5 gates of our senses, as well as the other senses of like knowing where I am in space and things like this. So if our bodies are disturbed, meaning, if I ate something really spicy or I had caffeine before I went to bed or whatever, then it's going to affect my dreaming as it also affects my sleeping.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting you bring that mind, like the mind versus the brain. And this is something I learned from Joe Dispenza and what he talks about. Like your body is the mind, your entire body. It's not. And so people kind of get that confused that, well, your brain is your mind. And I'm like, no, your mind is much bigger. Your brain is just like the command center. But another thing is the heart-mind coherence, because I saw a study where they said your heart has a energy like distance. I think they said of up to 3 feet, or maybe it was 3 meters. But you put
I
out,
think
like,
it's 6 feet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you put out like your heart is what is really your brain is just kind of there like, okay, I've got this instruction, I'm going to carry it out.
Exactly.
And even though there's, you got your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala and the fight, flight, or freeze, and then you have your intuition part of it, and they all kind of come together. But that's something that is fascinating, like how, but people don't realize like your brain is just kind of like the command center, like saying, get in the car, turn it on, start driving. These are the directions. But your mind is what your intuition, your feeling, your what your bigger stuff that we typically don't look at because we're so like, I've got to get in the car, I got to drive there, and I got to do this. And so we're more, I think, maybe more brain focused than we are mind focused.
Actually, it's the body that tells us to get in the car because we have a desire to go somewhere. Everything starts in the heart.
Right.
Everything starts in the body, let's say. The heart is what moves us. And the ancients, at least in certain spiritual traditions, did not put very much importance on the brain. Not because they didn't know that people had them. Obviously, people have brains.
Right.
But because they understood. They understood that our heart leads us. Our emotions lead us. We make decisions from an emotional place, I don't want to meet tomorrow. I want to meet Wednesday. Why? Just feels like it's going to be a better day. I have more time that day. It feels better to me. Mm-hmm. A feeling underlies all the decisions that we make. Then the brain says, okay, I'll do what you want me to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if more people could, and I'm just now starting to really kind of make that a new practice of, what am I feeling versus what am I thinking? Because it seems like the thinking part is easy. Like I can think whatever, but how am I putting it all together into a bigger package as opposed to just thinking then acting and or thinking and reacting, which I think we have the tendency to do.
We do. And this is part of why dreams are so, 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 so powerful, because that woman whose dream I gave as an example, who woke up and said, I couldn't wait any longer to do what I always wanted to do. The thinking of what kept that person from doing it, it's mind, it's mental thinking. It's someone saying, oh, you can't do that and make a living. It's someone saying you don't have the experience in that. It's someone saying, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when she plugged into a feeling place, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. And also the difference between how heavy and how old a horse and carriage is versus how light and quick the motorboat is. She could ask herself, what do I want to feel every day for the next years of my life? Heavy and slow or light and quick? And then the decision was made.
Yeah.
And like you say, once we make that decision, then we can employ our logical thinking and say, okay, so now I need to get a resume. Now I need to knock on doors. The stuff that makes it happen. But the most important thing is to know what we want to happen first.
Right. Yeah, because, and I think like in, in business, people say, I've always wanted to start a business, but you get the limiting beliefs like, oh, I can't. Oh, it'll be too much money. I don't have the resource. I don't have the education. I don't have, and I'm like, just do it. Look, when I started my first business 23 years ago, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was just like, I'm just going to do it. So, so maybe I had a dream about it and I didn't even realize it, but I didn't, it just happened. And I just, five businesses later, and I just like, I didn't know how to start a floral company, but it was COVID. Everything was shut down. People like flowers. I'm going to start a flower company. So, but I guess because I've never been told you can't. And I think when people get that in their brain, especially at a young age, because as a child, you absorb so much more information than you do as an adult. I think as an adult, you have a better filter. But children, you're just like a sponge of information. And when you get the I can't, or when you see like your parents struggling or people struggling, then you start to believe that you can't do it either. So you just don't. But that's the brain talking and not the body, right?
Yeah. And, at the Institute, we actually have a Young Dreamers program, Dreamer World Kids. And kids are just amazing when you can get in there and work with them because they do sponge, which means they also take in really good things like understanding, oh, that's a belief system, but I don't have to take it on and I can shift it. And they shift really quickly. Yeah. Kids are fun to work with. They understand images, first of all. They understand it, and I don't have to, jump over hoops to explain to them how it's meaningful to them. They get it. It is meaningful to them.
Yeah, they don't have all the clutter that adults have in the experiences and the things that are like, happen and kind of, I always look at it like, I went skiing one time with some friends and their kids, and the parents are like, oh, yeah, I still wanted to ski. Kids still wanted to ski. The parents wanted to go, to the chalet or whatever. And so I was like, okay, well, the kids take me all the way up to the very top. And I'm not that great of a skier. I mean, I can hold my own decently, but I'm not Pickaboo Streets. I can't. They took me all the way up to the top, to the like double black diamond or whatever. And we get all the way up there, and I'm looking down going, oh my gosh, these kids just take off. And they're like, come on, Kelly. I'm like, oh my God. And I think they're so fearless because like I started to go, well, what if I fall? What if I break a leg? What if I do this? What if I do? They don't have all those, but they just go. And so I could understand why this work would be perfect for kids, because they don't have all the hangups that we adults have, and the fears and the experiences and the failures and the worries and the what ifs. So I think this is great work for kids, because you're doing so, you're creating a generation of dreamers that can be far more creative and open to be whole different contribution to the world. So I think that's fantastic to do with kids.
Yeah. And, we've worked with 4 or 5 different refugee population young people. So people from Afghanistan, from Syria. And
Oh, wow.
this is one of the things that also is so great about dreaming. Images are universal. It's really a universal language. You can work with anybody with images. And so, there are young people who see their world as there's a house that's burning down, and that's, the dream. Well, what are you going to do about that? Again, one of the big things that we teach, and I show people how to do this in the Secret Mind, is how to interact with the dream and how to shift it. So then these kids are like, I just went in and I pulled my family out, and that's it. Whereas an adult is going to ruminate about what is the house? Is that the place that I just left? Is it, and we complicate.
House is it? Yeah.
Yeah. And the kids just like, okay, but I got them out. We're done.
Yeah.
And move on to the next thing.
Yeah. That's so nice. I wish I could do that. So, so your book comes out on June 28th?
24th.
And it's on Barnes & Noble and Amazon.
Yep.
And I'll include links in the show notes, but where can people find you, and can they do speaking opportunities, coaching opportunities?
Absolutely. So you can find me at bonniebuckner.com. You can find on there's a tab for the Institute. So all of my teaching in terms of classes is listed on the Institute. You can go directly there, which is Institute for Dreaming and Imagery.com. I have different upcoming events. I'm going to be doing a 3-day workshop at Kripalu for the winter solstice coming up in December. And in between, there's classes on dreaming. I do one-to-one coaching. So, yeah, send me an email.
So what is one thing, people today, they listen to this and they're like, okay, I had these crazy dreams. What's the one thing they can do, right now?
Okay, ready for it? Because I said I was going to do it. Write down your dreams every night.
Yeah.
That's the first thing to do. And really make a practice of writing down your dreams. The second thing is what you instinctively do that a lot of people don't, and it's super revelatory when you start. So writing down those dreams every night and then sitting in that space for a little bit of time and reflecting on what that might mean for my waking time without just rejecting it, saying that was crazy, or, grabbing the phone to look at emails. Just wait a few minutes and sit in that reflective space. You'll be amazed what comes up.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
This was just I feel like I can ask you all these questions, but Bonnie's book, The Secret Mind, will be out on June 24th. And so look for that. And thank you so much for being here. This was such a great conversation. And I'm glad I got more clarity on the snake.
Yeah, that great snake.
Yeah, that snake.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you got as much out of that episode as I did. It was utterly fascinating to me to learn about our dreams. If you love this episode, please share it with your friends, share it on social. If you know someone who needs to hear this, please share it with them. Next week, I am interviewing a former Marine, and we're going to talk about resilience. So I hope you will tune into that, and I will see you next time on the Confidence Academy.